Ladies and gentlemen, this is wrestling's last journeyman, the pride of Tater Peeler, Tennessee, and, if I do say so myself, one hell of a hand, Jeremiah Plunkett. And I'm telling you to listen up and give me back my pro wrestling.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
This is Steve Bowtie Bryant here. Back in the 90s, I was a pro wrestling photographer for the South, and I released what might have been one of the original sets of indie trading cards. I ran across some of these original sets. They were up in Randall Fanning's attic all this time. PG-13 rookie card, Ricky Morton, George Weingroff as the Sheik, Chris Champion, Reno Riggins, Billy Montana, Gary Valiant, the Scorpion, the Medic, Rick Reynolds, Jeff Daniels, Mephisto and Dante, Ben Jordan, Steve Neely, Marcus Woodrow, Clinton Charisma, Little Farmer John. If you'd like an opportunity to get these cards, contact me now. You can get them for only $49.99. Contact me at Steve Bowtie Bryant at iCloud.com. Get your set now while supplies last.
Hey guys, this is Wolfie D from PG-13. Check out my podcast, Live and in Color with Wolfie D, every Monday at noon. We're talking Memphis, we're talking ECW, WCW, WWF, everywhere that I've been. We even have some great guests, some Hall of Famers on the show with us. Every Monday at noon, Live and in Color with Wolfie D.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling.
I'm excited about this one. This is an old buddy of mine. I actually had the chance to even be a manager for him for a while. I even got to book him on one show that should never be mentioned. But at the same time,
someone gave you the book?
Yeah, for like a day. It was fun. It was just had to happen, I guess. But anyway, from Tater Pillar, Tennessee, my old buddy, the by God best ride in the business, Jeremiah Plunkett. How you doing, buddy?
I forgot about that show until right now. I absolutely forgot everything about it until this moment right now. You also got me my first job booking.
Hey, so
when you asked me to come into Nashville and help Mike Porter's show out.
Yeah. So, hey, there at least is that. But God, dude, you were like saving me on that show. I remember I almost had the whole card booked like the way I would have loved to have had it. And then Mike's like, well, you got them here, put a show together. And I'm like, huh? What? That was not the deal. I just said I would help get some people in and then we can deal with that. But yeah, anyway, I don't want to start with that. I want to get into that in a second. So, Plunky, you are a current NWA star. You are honestly one of my favorite pro wrestlers. I met you on a Burt Prentice show. I think you made a joke and I laughed, and then I felt like you kind of were open to me laughing because I was kind of like, I've heard of this guy, but he's like, when you meet somebody, and I'm a manager, like who cares about a manager? So we just hit it off after that point, and then, yeah, man. So really good to have you on the show, brother.
Man, I appreciate being here, and I'm sure we can't repeat that joke today. I almost guarantee we probably can. I have no idea what it was.
Right.
But in today's climate, guarantee we can't repeat it.
Yeah, totally. A Burt show brought some of the best in the industry at that time, but also had a pretty funny backstage for sure.
Well, just the Southern boys too. Like they're different in a locker room than totally. A lot of people. Like they're wild. Like we laugh and have fun. Wrestling secondary.
Right. Yeah, and I've never forget the first time I saw a wrestler, not to be named, but you're gonna know who this is, who walked up and had two trunks in their hands.
Yeah. I told this story the other day
and said, "Which one should I wear?" And you look, and he's not wearing anything other than the trunks in his hands. And maybe the boots. but I doubt the boots. Anyway, yeah. That was just not the, it was like, welcome to the industry, pal.
Yep.
But, but anyway, Plunky, let's start with this, man. I know a lot of these answers, but tell the people about it. Of course, we're Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling. So, of course, we want a pro wrestler on the show. So who were some of your favorites growing up?
So I'm a Tennessee boy, obviously. So Jerry the King Lawler has to be probably my number one growing up.
Yeah.
So I was a wrestling fan for as long as I can remember, but like when I was younger and into the Hogans and Ultimate Warriors, it was just kind of like something that I would watch if it was on. I was way more into Power Rangers than I was wrestling at that time. You know what I mean? Wrestling was there, but it ranked kind of low. When I became a really big fan, though, was when I discovered Memphis wrestling about mid 90s. So I think it was USWA at the time.
Yeah,
and the thing that really hooked me, and probably the thing that made me want to do this one day, was Lawler was doing commentary on WWF, but this was one of those times when he's coming back to the Mid-South Coliseum. So they dusted off one of those old Lawler music videos because Lord knows they weren't going to make a new one.
Right.
So they dusted off an old one. I believe it was the King of the Mountain music video.
Okay.
And Lawler's throwing fire. And that amazed me. And I wanted... This is my young brain thinking. I want to learn to be a pro wrestler so I can learn how to throw fire. Because obviously that's part of wrestling school is learning how to throw fire.
Of course. In Memphis it is.
Right. But so from then, so USWA would come on probably, I don't remember the times. I believe it was 11. It was after the cartoons on that channel. And then there would be a block after that. So at some point after that, the WCW local show would come on.
Right.
So that's where I saw and fell in love with Arn Anderson, as you know my love for Arn Anderson. And Bobby Eaton. That's where I'd find those guys. And I'm like, and they looked older. They didn't look like anybody else in the mid 90s at WCW. But I'm like, these guys are better than these young jacked guys.
Right.
And I could just see that. So I gravitated toward them. And then, then the Monday Night Wars happened. And that's when I really started watching the WWF and the main show, WCW. But Memphis was what really got me excited for it.
Yeah. That's awesome. I mean, I figured so. The USWA, WCW, being a Southern wrestler, Southern boy, those two meant the world to both of us. Let me say this. What does pro wrestling mean to you?
Pro wrestling mean to me?
Make it hard.
God, it sounds like, is this a beauty contest and now I have to come up with something?
Yeah, it's philosophical and not.
This is the essay part of the class.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. Pro wrestling to me, it's a lot of things. Like it is an art. I know there's some old schoolers who hate that, but it is. It's an art. But at the same time as an art, it's a sport.
Yeah.
And it is entertainment. Yeah. And so it's this crazy mixture of everything. And I know sports entertainment, even to me, like I've gotten used to it, but the term still sucks. I don't like it. Right. But it's all those things. It's art, it's physicality, it's storytelling, and that's what I think is the most important. And obviously, what may be a little more lost today is the storytelling aspect. And that's what I love most personally.
Yeah. I tell you, man, when we would ride in the car to shows, like I always loved, we would talk a little politics, not like George Bush, Barack Obama politics, but we would talk wrestling politics. I always felt like whenever I would take a car trip, and I would talk probably more than a rookie should or a guy who should, but man, I always had just a ton of questions. So I felt like if I didn't talk, I would never learn anything. And I just remember, you and I riding together and, just the times I was like, this is the most fun part of the show. Of course, going out there and performing, but at the same time, getting in the car and riding to the show, even if it was to Millersville, it was always a blast to me, I guess let's start back at this because I know I've kind of went a little bit ahead, but who trained you, Plunky?
So my initial training was straight out of high school. I was trained by Buzzed Up, Lee Condry, and Mean Mike Woods.
Buzzed Up.
The way, oh yeah, that's still one of my closest friends to this day. He's a trip, man. And the way it all started was weird because, like, back in 2005, the internet was newish, right? And I wasn't so much an internet techie kid, so I didn't know you could Google like pro wrestling schools. I didn't know that was a thing. So my thought, after I realized I wasn't going to get a college football scholarship, was to go to every independent wrestling show I could and ask guys on their way to the ring if they train pro wrestlers.
Oh man, that's awesome.
And I did it. Like, and people, I'd get the weirdest looks, and we'd always kind of dress up a little bit so that they would notice us, right?
Of
so
course.
I was probably wearing a t-shirt and a sports jacket that was dressed up for me, and some Jinkos because 2005.
Respect.
But like, just as they went by, they're making their entrance, high-fiving people or yelling at people. And I'm like, do you train wrestlers? Do you train wrestlers? And usually I just get weird looks and ignored. And then Mike Woods gave me a weird look, wrestled his match, rolled out after his match, and said, stay after the show. And made us wait for about an hour after the show. But me, Chris Norte, and Caleb Pendergrass, Casey Crucible, who we all trained together. We all waited after the show. I remember we were so scared, and nobody was in the arena, like nobody. But we're still waiting because that's what they were told to do. And then Caleb runs in, jumps off the top rope, and does a flip bump and rolls out of the ring.
Yeah, that's
and we're just so amazed that he had the balls to do it. We're like, oh, you touched it.
Yes. Oh man. I remember at one of the first shows I ever visited as an older guy. I was in college and I went in the ring. It was Tatanka. He was signing gimmicks and you get a Polaroid with Tatanka. You could hold the title and take a Polaroid. So what did I do? I said, okay, here's your money, Tatanka. And I was like, okay. And I grabbed the belt. I stood up on the second turnbuckle and held the belt like old Stone Cold. And sure enough, he's like, don't ever do that, kid. I was like, okay, yes, sir.
So wait, you're supposed to take a picture with the belt and Tatanka, and you said screw Tatanka, me with the belt.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a hell of a heel turn to Tatanka, man. Come on, trying to big league like that.
Man.
I mean, it was $20 or something, dude. I was like, I know what I'm doing when I get in the ring. Anyway, I had no business doing that, but long story short, yeah. So, okay, so we got who trained you, some great guys. We'll have to get Buzz on the show sometime. He's hilarious.
Oh God, yeah, Buzz is a trip.
Yeah. He is like the guy in the back that everybody goes to. Like, he is like a magnet of people. Like, you can never really like sit near him because there's always 3 people in seats right beside him. You know what I mean? Like, and you're probably one of the guys in the seats. So,
all the time. He's one of my favorite people to ride with.
Oh yeah,
because we're laughing the entire way, and it usually goes by really, really fast.
Yeah.
He's not the best night driver, I learned on our last road trip.
Oh no.
But I mean, it wasn't bad, but it was also later than it should have been. And I noticed he was driving really fast. He was ready to get home. And I looked over and saw like 95. And I'm like, hey bro, let's not. As we're going through the East Tennessee mountains, like, let's not, buddy.
Yeah. Well, what was your first match, man?
Oh God. So I was a fill-in. I main evented my first show.
Nice.
Yeah, wait until you hear this match. I can't believe I volunteered for this. I was replacing somebody in a 6-man tag. I shouldn't really say tag because it was a tornado tag.
Okay.
Falls count anywhere.
Sure.
No disqualification. Hardcore match.
Nice.
And wait. That was you, Super Green, first match.
Yeah, like Super Green, like never done anything in a ring besides my backyard ring and training.
Okay, and before you say who's in the match, who booked that?
So there was a company in Smyrna, Tennessee called American Championship Wrestling. Lee Condry, one of my trainers.
Oh yeah, he's great.
Yeah, he was. I don't know if he technically booked. I didn't know the difference between a booker and promoter at that time.
Right.
But I don't know if they ever had a actual booker. I think they just kind of made some matches up together and went with it.
Yeah.
But it was a big hardcore fit. Like this was, ECW had died, but this ripple effects are still being felt.
Yeah. Totally.
It is myself. Oh, this makes it even better. I'm in a group called the Black Stallions because the guy that was replacing was an African American gentleman. I am tagging with Carnage and Chris D'Angelo.
Okay.
Again, in this group called the Black Stallions. I'm wrestling the High Rollers, which is GQ and Lee Condry. And a gentleman named White Trash.
Yeah.
Who we would go on to have a run-in the future together.
I know that one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If you want to go into it, we will.
We'll talk later. Yeah.
Let's see. Got color.
Wait, did you mean to, or did you get hard weight?
Neither. Lee being a pro that I trusted got it for me.
Okay,
Nice.
good.
Nice.
Okay. You know what? I would have to say that's probably the best way as a rookie to try to get color at that point, right? Because you got to be nervous to go, first of all, you have to make your blade, and then you're like, how do I do it? What do I do? If you have someone, like you said, you trusted to do it for you, that had to take a lot of anxiety away from you at that point too.
Yeah, he's the only person I ever let do it, and I did let him do it multiple times until finally when I've got to do this on my own because I don't trust anybody else. You know what I mean? And I had seen, actually, somebody I trained with, now this was years later, but they got color for him, and he moved or something like that and just, filleted himself. So I would never, ever again. Like, and it probably, I love Lee, but probably even Lee, if I were to have to wrestle him to this day and bleed, I'd be like, I got this, buddy.
Yeah. You want me to do it again?
Nah, man, we're good. Even though I'll say this, he was very much, he and I do it differently. He's very much a poke and twister with no scars. And I'm like, Dusty Rhodes, baby, here we go. Up and down, up and down, up and down. Make it good, Daddy. Make it good.
Oh, man.
But got color, thumbtacks. The finish was a double rock bottom onto a bundle of light tubes.
Nice.
That sucked. Light tubes didn't get, like all the glass didn't get on my back for 2 weeks. And it'd just be like, there'd be like 3. And you never knew when you'd roll over and just happen to feel it. And it just still took the rain down that night after I was able to take like a 5-minute shower. Yeah, I think that was the first night I had dip that night too, because I discovered it gives you superpower energy while I was taking down the ring.
Yeah.
And then I tried to drive and about died.
Yeah, I'm sure. Which is a rite of passage, is taking down and putting up the ring for sure.
So let me ask you this question real quick, because I've always wanted to know, does it suck getting color, or is it to the point where at that point, because I mean, I was talking to my buddy over the weekend watching the AEW event, and Punk got color real good, and I'm like, at that point, are you just so jacked that you don't even know? You're just like done, or does it suck every time? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've been there both ways, right? Like I've been there where I didn't even notice I got anything, and I've damn near cut my head off and didn't feel a thing, and then was like, oh God, this is a bad idea, and then you know what? I let one other person try to get it for me, Damian Wayne, and he just kept filleting my forehead and nothing would bleed. That sucked. So yeah, sometimes it does suck. Usually what gets it for you. What sucks is when you think you got it good and nothing wants to come. And then you have to get it again, and like your adrenaline from the first time getting it's gone, so you feel every bit of that one.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
But you usually know like where to hit on you that's good.
Is there something, because again, like I said, we were just because it's fresh, I saw it over the weekend. Is there something, do you I don't know, is there like a supplement, like you take B12 or you take something to help get it going or anything like that? Or I mean, like I said, hey man, I'm a total mark. Like, hey Dan, go talk to a pro wrestler. Oh goody, it's like Christmas for me. I get to ask all these stupid questions that as a kid I'm always just like, how the hell do they do it?
My favorite one, especially when I know that I'm going into a brawl and it doesn't have to be a technical match. Couple ice cold beers.
Give me a hell yeah!
Yeah, makes sense.
Couple beers. Some goodies.
Yeah.
I have in the past used both niacin and iron as well to it.
Sure.
If you ever see like a super bright red blood, they probably took some iron.
Okay.
Because I noticed that the one time I used it, I was like, my blood's almost fluorescent colored.
Yeah. I remember when it was a one night at NWA Saw, and Chris Michaels and Kevin Weatherby were in a match, and it was a blow off to a feud. And was it Kevin or Chris that couldn't get color? Anyway, so Chris was just pounding tall boys and aspirin, and that was his combo, as the aspirin and tall boys. And, God forbid if he had a gusher, man, he might have bled out. But, Chris was a pro.
Man. One night with Chase, he almost did.
Gosh.
Well, and then that match that night with Damian Wayne, when he kept trying to get it for me, and I finally just pulled my back up and got it.
Yeah.
I almost bled out.
Oh my God, bro.
Oh, geez, man.
Yeah. So,
That's the first time I ever called a match off from being dizzy. I was up on the top rope about to deliver an elbow. I dropped the elbow, and it was the ugliest elbow because it was kind of like just a flopper. And I go to pin, I go, we've got to go.
Yeah.
Oh, we still got like 5 minutes. I'm like, no, we don't. You might. I don't.
It's home time, buddy. Come on, let's go. Right. Sure.
Brother, I'm dizzy. We got to go.
Yeah. No kidding. You know, that kind of leads me into my next question. So when I first got involved, it was around 2011 or so in the scene out there. Talk about that era of Nashville wrestling. I love Nashville. I miss it to this day. Let me just say this. Our first episode was about the Mount Rushmore in pro wrestling. My personal Mount Rushmore of pro wrestling in Nashville was you, Plunky, Drew, Seven, Josephus, and Dyron Flynn. Those were my 5. And again, I managed most of them until Josephus said, watch the knee. And he kneed me and threw me out of the ring. He was like, nobody's managing me except the cave girl, basically. Rest in peace, Josephus. So there was such a strong amount of talent out there that were like burgeoning, in my opinion. You know, like Dyron had the mouth, Seven had all the size. You know, you and Drew, I thought, were so, God, dude, y'all were like FTR before FTR was FTR. Like the Untouchables, to me, I managed NWA Tag Team Champions with Tyson and Andy, but man, y'all, like, I felt like y'all were like the Midnight Express and the Brainbusters. You were the Midnight Express Brainbuster combination. Y'all even had the trunks and everything, I remember. And it was like, bro, if you can imagine FTR before FTR, I mean, I guess that's what I would consider the Untouchables. Like, y'all were so good. And then, you know, Drew, he's a family man, you know. Drew, to me, you'll probably say this, but Drew's probably one of the best people on the planet, you know, as far as human beings. So, Drew Haskins, if you hear this, we love you, buddy. So, anyway, I'm going to shut up. Talk about that era of wrestling in that, you know, scene.
Actually, I think Drew Haskins is a terrible, terrible person, and I wish his name never to be spoken in my presence.
Dang, man.
No, I'm just playing. That's just because he keeps going. Hey man, I think I got one more run left in me, and then I'll tell Nick and Carrie so we can do an Untouchables Team IOU one last time, and then I'll never hear from Drew again.
Oh man!
So
yeah.
He's done that like 2 or 3 times to me, and I'm like, then he'll come back and be like, blah 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 wrestling, and I'm like, you're not coming back. Don't even talk about it.
Yeah, you're just gonna get me excited.
Yeah, exactly. That time wrestling, I can't remember, was USWO still running at that time or no?
It was. In its last days in the NWA main event, you had Saw at the big place at Fairgrounds. So you had the Reno Saw and the TJ Saw. It was just you had a lot of opportunities there in that town, you know, and then you had to
could work, I think 3 to 4 nights a week in Nashville proper.
Yeah.
Right, because you had Thursdays. Yeah, we had Wednesdays at the Stadium Inn.
Right.
For whoever was running Wednesdays. You had Thursdays for Mike Porter on either Veritas Street or the other place. I forgot what the other road was.
Gallatin Pike.
Yeah, Gallatin Pike. You had the world famous Stadium Inn on Friday nights, USWO.
Tony Falk, baby.
Yeah, such a show that a drunk Dusty Rhodes even made a run in one night during the TNA days.
Absolutely.
Like, so too many people have wrestled in a hotel full of drug dealers and crack whores.
Literally.
But literally. There's a sign that says, what drug dealers and prostitutes take your business elsewhere.
Yeah.
They have that sign for a reason.
Exactly.
Saturday.
No, wait. Did you wrestle? Did you wrestle in 2011 or 1983? That sounds like some very old school wrestling stories, kind of.
I think the last time that the Stadium Inn was updated would have been 1983. There's still a cigarette machine, a working cigarette machine. It may have been 1983.
Yeah.
Wow. Go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I was just you told me that. I'm like that sounds like something I've heard from, like, you know, Dark Side of the Ring or one of those old school documentaries. I'm like, holy shit, that's
they can do a Dark Side of the Ring on early to mid 2000s. USWO specifically, but
Totally.
Nashville wrestling, it'd be bad too. A lot of people would fry. And you also had the Sawmill, TJ Weatherby running us all. You had Reno, who had syndicated TV running Showtime All Star Wrestling.
Right.
I mean, and that's just in that area. And then, like, just outside of it, in Columbia, you had wrestling. In Lebanon, you had wrestling. Lewisburg.
Right.
Mount Juliet. Like, you had wrestling everywhere around there. The scene's kind of dead compared to it now. But the payoffs are better because there's not everybody running every night.
Yeah, that's great.
But I think they burned out Nashville. Yeah, is what it was. Because there was so much running in Nashville every week.
Well, Bert always claimed that TNA killed Nashville, so that was. Well,
yeah, Bert. I didn't even mention Bert. Bert would randomly run in Nashville.
He would run on the
everywhere,
outskirts.
but. He'd run a random big show in Nashville.
He's the reason I've managed in Illinois and in Kentucky and in Alabama. I know who did I work for in Alabama. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. You're the guest, so
probably Will Owens.
Yeah, you're right. You're exactly right. Yeah. So that era of Nashville to me had such magic to it. Now again, I was involved in it, so probably a little biased on that. But what did you think? First off, when you saw this? Probably, what would you say? The most Caucasian person on the planet wearing a Sheik's garb.
It popped me because that's the most carny wrestling thing ever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I look, I pop for the carny stuff, man. I think it's hilarious.
Right.
So when I met you and I'm like, oh wait, you're Omar.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
What was funny is I even got another guy, Reed Owens, who actually could partially be Middle Eastern because he has the olive skin. Reed Owens, he picked up a gimmick and actually ran with it for a long time. So Luke, just based off of my gimmick, which is hilarious because, I mean, he could have been a million different things with anybody else, but he chose that one. It was crazy. So I even tried to get one of Norte and Dyron's friends to take over after I had moved to Jimmy Street and stayed with my own name. I was like, dude, how awesome would it be if we had this kid be Omar and me at the same show? And this kid was actually Middle Eastern. Forgive me for not knowing his name, but Dyron and Norte, I think, are buddies with him. Anyway, long story short.
Well, you even did both on some shows.
I did. Yeah.
I remember that. Yeah.
I did. Yeah. Which was weird. And then Dutch Mantell looked at me and up and down. He was like, you're all right, but you got to get a better gimmick. I was like, okay, Dutch. Respect. So, talking about some of the people out there, the Untouchables, as far as a tag team goes, what was your goal with that? I mean, was it take it to the top as far as you can? I mean, when you guys got together?
So when we got together, it was because we enjoyed traveling together.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we had similar personalities, and especially similar outlooks on wrestling.
Yeah.
So we just enjoyed traveling together, and we're like, we'll just, get booked as a tag team or something. The name Untouchable came from we would work for certain promoters, and, they'd always make this big sting. And you know how it was back in the day, and I'm not like this anymore, but I would have some beers before a show.
Sure. Yeah.
I would have some beers during a show.
Yeah.
And then I would have some beers after a show.
Sure.
And Drew and I both enjoyed that. And these same promoters would get on to people about not drinking or not showing up this way because we could usually handle ourselves. They never said a word to us.
Yeah.
So I joked to Drew one night that apparently we're untouchable. And he goes, that's our name. That's it.
Yeah.
So it's all because we didn't get in trouble by promoters for drinking.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The birth of a gimmick, folks. There it is.
At least the name. And the gimmick was just, man, Mike Promo had always told me, wrestle like you saw yourself do it when you were a kid. Well, I asked Drew, I'm like, hey, what tag teams do you like? He liked the Untouchables. Yeah, I hope he liked us. He liked the Brain Busters. We both liked the Midnight Express, and we just kind of merged them. And then we'd go with other tag team. We'd take stuff from the Hart Foundation. We'd take stuff from, I know we did Rockers stuff when we were babyface on the rare occasion. And we just take, and to the point that we had a playbook, a legitimate playbook. And so we had code words for each other, and because we heard Cornette say in a shoot interview, this is how they did the intricate tag moves, but you can never see them talk. because they had like one or two words, but they knew what that meant. And we had a playbook that we studied and memorized, and
Yeah.
and we just, I don't know, man. And we always thought the point of the match would be like, we always went by the roller coaster philosophy of bringing them up and down and up and down and up and down. And especially when we were the Southern Tag Champions and we would take the belts to non-NWA promoters, and we do the same finishes all the time, which is where their guys look like they've won, but they threw one of us over the top rope. We bring out a book that we had made. I put way too much thought into all this, and as a book with a giant NWA logo and as an official rule book, and we have somebody read it. It would port to the subsection where over the top rope's a disqualification. So while they won, we are still the champions. We got out of town. We tried to be the 80s as much as we could on everything we did.
That's a great gimmick, man. That's a great gimmick finish because you can make the local talent look strong. You can put them over still by letting them win, but there's no question about, why is the belt gone? Why is this or whatever? It's a good heel move to really get you heat when you come back to the territory area, to that particular promotion and stuff like that. That's pretty awesome. And one of the things I was telling Jimmy with this podcast specifically is I like the idea of hopefully people seeing some of the more old school techniques and tricks and moves and things that you guys that they would have used, in the 70s, 80s, or even yourself in the 2000s, but emulating some of the older style, work, like you said, the Carney stuff like that. Those things still work, So with this podcast, I like to do a little bit of comparative, this compared to nowadays, and show people that, like, for example, like let's say Ricochet, for example. All right, aerial moves. Unbelievable. Some of the stuff, Phoenix, some of the aerial stuff he does, unbelievable. But like all of this had root in the 60s, 70s, or even over in England with, World of Sport and stuff like that. So it's awesome to hear that you are a mid to later 2000s wrestler still doing Carney wrestling technique, and it still worked. It worked then. It'll work now. Like FTR could do that with Tully tomorrow night, and it would get over. It would work.
Man, I'll tell you this. You can work in front of the smartest fans, and if you do it right, I can still take a piece of cardboard wrapped in athletic tape and go after somebody's eye, and I'm gouging this man's eye out with a spike.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh, sorry. In Tennessee, everything's a chain, apparently. But
Right.
I don't know how many times somebody would pass me a pair of Knucks, and I'd hit them, and it's obviously a pair of Knucks, and they're like, he's got a chain. Or I'd be stabbing somebody with the atomic popsicle stick, and they're like, it's got a chain. And like,
or when I would carry an actual chain, they'd be like, he's got brass knuckles.
Yep. We just started using your shoe.
Yeah, that's true. We did.
Oh, nice.
That was the JJ gimmick.
Nice.
Yeah, that was the JJ gimmick. I had these really nice. I still have them somewhere, but these really nice patent leather floor shimes that were super like.
Were they like ankle boot gimmicks, or were they?
Yeah, they were like Chelsea boots, like real deal, and they were like your Papa's church boots, basically. But at the same time, we started using them because I could zip them off and have them off real quick and in and out, and it was beautiful. Like I said, man,
the NWA Southern Tag Team titles, man.
Well, and that's the
favorite
thing.
Pair of dress shoes ever.
Yeah. I was I think I got a different job and I had to stop, and y'all were kind of on your trajectory of traveling more. You were in town some, but you were traveling more. So we kind of had to part ways. But, I'll put it this way, and I'm going to say this with the most honesty that I can, bring about. I feel like if the Untouchables could have stuck together, they would be giving FTR a run for their money right now. I'm just saying that. I love FTR. I think the idea of FTR is awesome, but at the same time, I mean, I could see y'all wrestling anywhere right now. Stick around for more Jeremiah Plunkett. We'll be right back after these messages.
Welcome to the Monster Movie Stomp Down with me, Stompy, and my brother Frank.
Hi, I'm Frank.
Join us, Sludge, Mark, and Ruben 3 times a month as we review monster movies from around the world.
And don't forget about the monthly contest and trivia.
Not only that, Frank, but you will find extra content like the Underdogs, Monster Mash Wednesdays, and the Friday Night Fights, each week exclusively on our Facebook and Instagram.
So please join us at the Monster Movie Stomp Down.
your one-stop chomp for monster movie reviews, news, interview, trivia, laughs, and of course me, Stompy.
And Frank.
Are you a pro wrestling fan? Well, stop by Captain's Corner, where you can get autographed photos, cards, magazines, and figures from all of your favorite wrestling superstars of the past, present, and future. You'll also be able to participate in live signings in the weeks and months to come. Make sure to stop by Captain's Corner on Facebook and give us a holler. Remember, cheers to the working man.
But the cool thing is you are wrestling somewhere. And, granted, ROH just went down and rebirth. But, dude, the NWA is doing some real stuff right now, brother. Every time I watch it, I enjoy it even more. Talk about that, man. First of all, what was your end to the NWA? I mean, I got to guess, but,
you may or may not be right. So I'd gone down there one time. I'm good buddies with Anthony Mayweather Crimson, and I'd gone down there one time because our school would provide extras and security and ring crew. And I was asked if I wanted to go down and help. I said sure. So I went down, and whatever the December before COVID was, time is a concept at this point.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I can only imagine what it's like for you and your profession. Me, I do maintenance in apartments, and I never stopped, but it was so weird for me. Even I can imagine what it was like for you, and you've heard from the pro wrestlers going, COVID is it sucked. I can imagine what it was like for you, bub.
It was real. It was rough to the point that that was December. I really wasn't in working shape then because I had injured my neck. So I was taking some time off. So I'm like, I'll just go down there and help. Obviously, I'll suck it up if they ask me to wrestle, but if not, I'll just work. And they didn't need me to wrestle, so I did some work backstage. But I was going through neck treatments. So I had just come back from that in February. And then COVID happens in March and shuts everything down. I had 2 matches back from injury, from being out for 4 months, 5 months. And then I was shut down for COVID I can't remember when people started taking bookings.
Forever. Yeah. That's how long. Right.
And I thought, so I was to the point then where I was like, I may come back and wrestle some more or I may not.
Yeah.
And like everybody else, I gained some COVID weight. So then I started, getting on this weight loss thing. And I was working out with Kerry Awful. He's got a school in Middle Tennessee called Crux Wrestling.
Props to Kerry.
I like this. Yeah. I like to just stay in ring shape. You know what I mean? So I'd go down there and roll around, and he'd let me help coach. And I was just trying to blow myself up. And I got a call from a New Jersey area code, and I don't know anybody in New Jersey, so I kayfabed that call. Just
of course.
Voicemail.
Yeah.
Until I got a text message right after from that call. Hey, this is Pat Kenny with the NWA. I'd like to talk to you about coming to work for us. I need to go outside and take this call, Kerry.
Sorry.
And yeah, man. And he was booking me for the April 2021 show. And he had remembered me because I did a gut check for TNA in, I believe it's 2012. The years are bad. Shots to the head, but I believe it was 2012, and Pat Kenny was the one who was leading our gut check, and he liked me then. Nothing came of the gut check besides spending a little time in OVW. And when I saw Pat, when I walked in, he shook my hand. He goes, Jeremiah Plunkett. He goes, you remember the gut check in 2012? I go, yes, sir, I do. He goes, I liked you then. Couldn't get you a job. We'll see what we can do here.
Yeah.
So it was real cool, man. So obviously, being associated with lots of the guys who already worked there and them knowing me, as well as the right person being in the executive producer chair who also knows me, got me my opportunity. I'm not contracted or anything with them. I'm just hey, they call me, I show up. But I love being there. You spoke to watching their product and enjoying it before it was even fathomed that I would go there. I was like, man, this is my favorite wrestling on TV because it's the wrestling that I love to watch.
It
reminds me of the Georgia Championship or the Memphis.
Totally.
Or all
Mid-Atlantic.
Studio wrestling.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Dude, I love the look of it. I love the feel of it. I mean, Billy, it seems to me, is such a attention to detail, man. How does it feel working? First of all, I'm a freaking Smashing Pumpkins mark, like straight up. How does it feel work? I mean, like when you, when I talked to Wolfie about Vince, he's like, it's a presence. I imagine Billy's probably the same, right? Just a presence about him. Would you? But maybe I'm wrong.
No. I mean, you're right, and I don't think it is something that he puts off, but I don't think it's something that he puts off intentionally.
Sure.
He's just kind of existing in the world, man. You know what I mean? And just like, and it took me a couple tapings before I ever had like a conversation with him besides, hi and thank you.
Yeah.
And then I was like, he's actually pretty cool. I'll say this. He's a good dude. When I got married, I was on my way because we had just like a 2-day honeymoon because a real honeymoon would come later in the year because we moved it so I could make these tapings.
Yeah.
And he sent a Instagram message and it was like, hey, congratulations on the honeymoon, blah, blah, blah. Like a long one, not just a, hey, congratulations, like long. And I was like, Billy Corgan just messaged us, congratulations.
That's awesome.
What is this world?
Yeah.
You still have those surreal moments.
Totally.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, for sure.
Yeah.
The fact when Ricky Morton and Tracy Smothers gave me their phone numbers, like little watching USWA wrestling fan Jeremiah was like, what?
Yeah, I can only imagine. When we first talked about doing this podcast, I was talking to, because I am good friends with Jimmy's cousin, and that's kind of how we got hooked up, he and I. And it came down, he was like, hey, you want to do a wrestling podcast? You love wrestling? I was like, yeah, okay. And they're like, Jimmy does one with Woofy and all this other stuff. I said, okay. I go, do I get to talk to pro wrestlers eventually? And we're like, yeah, probably. And I'm like, deal, done, cool. Because, I mean, I'm 45 years old, but if I get to talk to a pro wrestler to this day, I turn into a little kid again. And half of me is like, what's it like this? And what's it like that? And how do you choose this? And how do you, and then the other half of me is like, all right, calm down. You're a grown man. Try not to, I was telling Jimmy, I got to actually spend, day and a half with Ray Lloyd Glacier a couple years back at a Comic-Con, like kind of like a handler. And I started off real cool. Hey man, yeah, I used to watch and everything else. And by the end of it, I'm like, really? And what's this? And what's that? He's like, well, here's the armor. And I'm like, this is great. And I'm like, I'm like a little kid again. So it's good to know that this is what you do for a living, but at the same time, you're still that little 10-year-old kid sometimes, it seems to me like it's something you appreciate so much. I can imagine certain people who will go unnamed. Not that we're ever probably going to talk to them, but, and that are working for a gentleman up north that get to the point where they're like, it's my job. This is what I do. This is my job, X, Y, and Z. I think that comes across, and so it's awesome to talk to a guy that's just like, nah, man, I'm a fan. I'm a kid still sometimes. Yeah, it's your job and everything else, but, you can just tell, can't you? I mean, especially as a fan, I can tell those that love it, those that are just doing it. Can you tell that when you're going to work with somebody or when you're trying to set up a match beforehand? Or, I mean, how does, do you get a vibe like that? Do you know who it's business and who it's fun still?
Yeah, to a degree. I say that with a little bit of trepidation though, because like I have totally been that guy to where we're trying to put a match together and it's a young guy who wants to go out there and do everything.
Sure.
And I'm like, listen, man, I'm beat up. We're going to keep this kind of dumb. We're going to keep this simple. We're still going to work hard, but we're going to keep this simple. And I just see like the disappointment in their eyes. Or if I tell them like, some nights my back might act up and be like, hey man, listen, ain't going to be many bumps tonight. And you're just like, oh, this guy's lazy. No, I'm going to go out there and work hard and probably blow you up. But like, I just need to take a few less falls on my back for tonight so I can get up in the morning. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Sure.
Yeah. So I've been that guy. So I try to give everybody a benefit of the doubt like that when I'm putting a match together with them.
Mm-hmm.
Because some people might not want to say they're hurt, and they just like, maybe not.
Sure,
Cool.
sure, it makes sense.
Or they might be burnt out. You don't know what they're going through. What I do hate though is when like you can tell that they're not wanting to give as much as they want to receive.
Okay, it makes sense. Yep, yeah, I get that.
And I'm very much, I've always been taught, and I think it's a Southern wrestler thing, that you make the other guy look as good as possible, so that they make you look as good as possible. And
that's your job.
Great.
Yeah, that's your job at the end of the day. Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
Well, has that ever gotten you in trouble, like to where you were like, I told you to get over on him strong, and you're like giving him 50-50? Has that ever gotten you in a position to where you were like, come on, dude, I was trying to make the guy look good. That's the way I was trained. I mean,
hasn't gotten me in trouble. It has probably negatively affected me in some situations where I should have turned it off. You know what I mean? Where I'm supposed to focus on what they're wanting me to look like.
Yeah.
And I've had some get over matches, and they're not fun. They're just not for me.
Right.
You know what I mean? I've always been a hard bumper and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I really like making people look good, especially when I'm working as a heel. So I bet it probably has impacted me to the point where I'm kind of seen as that in some places.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? As the guy who can lead somebody to a good match, and we'll put the other guy over, and that's fine. And this guy can work with anybody, makes him look good, and I'm fine with that, because at this point I know what I am. I'm 5'10", 250 pounds. I'm not going to set the world on fire in the land of giants, but what I am is a hell of a hand and a good journeyman wrestler, a carpenter, and I can make somebody who nobody else can have a good match with. I can probably pull something out of them.
Yeah.
Well, you saying that though, the landscape of professional wrestling has changed. I mean, at least again, I say all this from a fan, a viewer standpoint. You're right. The land of giants. I remember I had the opportunity to meet the Hardys years and years ago. And I'm like, these guys are, Edge and Christian, better example. You don't realize that they're as tall and big as they are when you see them on TV, because against someone like Dave Bautista, they're like, you're a little dude, but nowadays you do have guys that are 5'10". You've got guys that are 6 foot. You've got guys that are 250 and that height as well, but again, to me, it seems like you can almost get over any kind of a quote unquote physical limitation, a look, a body guy, whatever. You can get over that kind of stuff if you've got the personality that really captures nowadays. Like we were talking earlier before we went on air about Danhausen, for example. Before Danhausen, when he was in his human makeup, we will say, just to keep it kayfabe, he wasn't getting over. It could do good matches. I've seen some of them can go, but when he started doing the Danhausen, that's now he's, skyrocketed. And it's because it almost, to me, again, of course, you want to see a big guy. You want to see Braun Strowman. You see him out working. Of course, you want to see a giant guy like that. That's great, because in my era, that's what we had. We had Hogan, we had Andre, things like that. But, I'm just as entertained with watching the smaller wrestlers now out there working. So, like you were saying, you're a journeyman. You know where you fit in, kind of in the landscape. But I'm of the mindset where I still think you could do anything you wanted to.
5'10" is the 6'3" of now.
It almost is. And you know what I'm saying? It's like, I don't know, man.
I get what you're saying. Yeah, like when I first got in, there'd be absolutely no way anybody would look.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And back in 2005, I wasn't a body guy and I wasn't above 6 foot. You know what I mean? And that was 2 prerequisites.
Yeah.
When I first broke in. Now it would be a little bit more possible. Now I've also got 16 years of damage on this body too.
Sure.
So, I'm not saying that the fire's dead as far as trying to be that guy. I'm saying I'm not willing to do what some on the independents are doing for that spot now.
Okay, makes sense. Yeah.
There's people who are working for exposure bucks out there now, and with hopes that eventually it'll pay off.
Right.
And I just don't trust.
Yeah.
Maybe this is another old school thing of me, but I still don't trust a lot of promoters.
Right.
So I don't trust a promoter to ever pay off those exposure bucks, to ever pay you back for what you've invested.
Yeah.
From the stories that I've heard, my entire life, yeah, I get it. I understand exactly what you're saying. It's, again, the carny portions of the industry. So some of them are awesome. Some of them are a hillbilly from Virginia trying to be a sheik, and some of them are also getting really screwed over. And that's gotta suck. Speaking of which, what is your least favorite part of the industry itself? Not the, bumping or the drive or whatever. What's your least favorite part of the industry?
If you're talking about something like I have to do, I hate negotiating. But the actual business talks, like that's something I hate doing, because especially when somebody will hit me up from a long ways away, and I'm just like, I know this person's not going to offer me a flight, and I'm too old, and I don't want to drive it anymore.
Yeah,
sure.
That's where I say maybe I've lost that fire a little bit, right? I used to drive 16 hours one way,
right,
for a shot,
right.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, I'm married and have a house that I don't have to leave. I have 3 cats that I really love. You know what I mean? Like, I've got really fast internet.
You're like, I don't need a hot dog and a handshake anymore, bud. I'm good. I appreciate it though. Yeah.
Well, and even if the pay's decent, I don't want to be on the road that long. I just like the car can kill you more than the matches.
I can imagine that.
But as far as something like that I have to do, I hate is the negotiation. I just hate it. As far as the industry itself, it's probably the taking advantage, either the taking advantage of the younger talent, by telling them it's all paying dues, and to a degree, I believe paying dues is a thing, but there's a level where it's like, hey, you just asked this guy to do what I said, to drive 16 hours to this shot, and you're like, hey man, you're green, I'm not gonna pay you for that. No man, you pay this guy,
right?
Something. Maybe he shouldn't be rich, but he should have gas in his tank. And God, I'm scared about what the future holds as far as transportation costs.
I'm glad I live where I work.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good segue there. Do you see that becoming a thing to where essentially, obviously, promoters have always tried to pay less and get more? Do you see that going away?
Well, I will say that for the most part, from now to back when I broke in, things have improved as far as like the treatment of wrestlers, the quality of shows. To a degree, the quality of wrestlers, like you'll still find, depending on what shows you're on, untrained guys or barely trained guys.
Right.
But if you're on decent shows, it used to be even on decent shows, there's a couple of them because they, brought 30 people to the show or something like that. The old ticket sellers.
Right.
You don't see as much as that anymore. Or if you do see ticket sellers, they're usually pretty decent. Yeah. So it's like, all right, the kid can work and he brings people. Perfect.
Right. God forbid, right?
So I will say things have seemed better, but I hate when I see someone taking advantage of a younger guy.
Yeah.
Both financially and physically. All these people who brag about roughing up somebody in the ring. If you're roughing up somebody who's giving you their body and not fighting back, you're
right. If you had to, I saw your
piece of work. I had to censor myself on that one because
I saw you sugar a dude that claimed he was trained by Chase Stevens one time that he was about to cry, and you were trying to get even more the deep hold on him. And I was like, "Do you remember that night the guy showed up at me?" Yeah, and you were like,
big jacked up guy in an Affliction shirt.
Yeah, and you stepped into the ring. You get him in a lockup. He couldn't lock up. You get him in some kind of maneuver, and then you sugar him for a minute, and you get out of the ring, and you were like, yeah, he ain't trained. And I'm like, I knew that. We all knew that, right? But anyway, yeah.
Well, the best part of that, and that was just me protecting myself, because there's this guy who BS his way into the ring.
Right.
But yeah, I tried to lock up with him. He couldn't do it. I'm like, what the? And then something happened, and he grabbed a hold on me, and I got out and punched him in the mouth. And then I took him down. And then I tagged in Sev. Right. And I thought, okay, because this dude was way bigger than me, bro. Like, this dude was big. Right. So I'm like, all right, tag in the big hitter. Right. Sev goes in and starts working with him. I'm like, all right, buddy, thanks.
Yeah. I thought you were going to calm him down, like really hurt him. But the thing was, what's so funny is he was claiming Chase Stevens trained him, and you were like, okay, I can call Chase right now and verify this. And Seven's like, well, Chase trained me. I'll call him. And it was like 30 people who could verify that this guy was just full of crap, you know. But anyway, I'll never forget that because you just stepped out of the ring onto the turn. You were standing there and you were like, yeah, he ain't trained. It's like, yeah, we knew that, right? But, you know, it's crazy to me to think that the guy could even schmooze his way in there. Literally, I was thinking Sev was just because he had his girlfriend there and he didn't even come back to the locker room. After the match, he went and sat down beside her. Have you ever seen that?
In the crowd. He watched the rest of the show.
Yeah. Have you ever seen that happen other than that?
Holy hell.
I've seen a guy get kicked out of the locker room and couldn't leave because his ride was still on the show.
Okay.
Yeah. But I've never seen the guy show up, claim to work, get booked, it go very poorly for him, and he stayed.
Right. Yeah. Sweating.
That's what shocked me is that he stayed.
He was like sweating in his jeans and like, you know, it was just that, oh my God.
And he didn't hit the ring on, because we had another match after that. That 6-man was added and thrown in.
Right.
So like we went back out to the ring and he didn't hit the ring on us. So.
No. And Porter was like, well, let's let him try. And it's like, are you sure, Porter? You know? So Porter, Mike Porter was a former funeral director in Nashville, and he had some ties. I don't know the full story on him because every time I say something, people are like, no, that ain't true. You know, he was apparently one of the great Mephisto. Is that true? He
worked in the Tennessee territory. I don't know if for Jarrett or Goulas. I know Goulas. I don't know if he was for Jarrett at all.
Right. Claimed that he was trained by Tojo, and he may have been. In
Tennessee territory, Tojo trained a lot of the guys, so that's very possible.
Right.
But so when they'd have mass tag teams, and they would do that because it would be easy to run multiple crews, and like you have a Devil's Disciples over here and a Devil's Disciples over here.
Yeah.
So he was probably a Mephisto.
Sure.
He was not the Mephisto.
Mephisto.
Yeah, that was Frankie Kane.
Frankie, and
was the original,
right?
As far as I know, anyway.
I think you're right. Yep, you're right. Yep.
But Porter was a Mephisto, and he was probably also a whatever angel that Frank Morrell was. He was probably also an assassin when they had the fake assassins in Tennessee. You know what I mean?
Right.
He was definitely a medic. I know he was a medic.
He was a medic. Yeah.
Yeah.
He had these 8x10s that he would always show us and be like, that's me right there. He was the last dude that I knew that actually did the wrestling handshake, because my mentor, Ken Still, you'll hear a lot about him in the show coming up. He actually showed me the handshake. And then I met all the guys because I met Kenny and learned a couple things from him, and then worked a few shows as a manager, never had to use them, and then got to Nashville and then got booked. And did more in Nashville than I ever did in Virginia. But the funny thing was I used the handshake like one time, and people were like, "No, bro, don't do that weak ass handshake. Do the real, like, shake it like a man." And so, like, just to kind of, you can't see this on the podcast, but it's a 2-fingered. I don't know. It's a horrible thing to get put on you. And Porter did it still.
There's a couple different ones, right? So there's the guys who just give you the dead fish. So they go in like a regular handshake, but there's nothing with it.
Because he works light. So
right. Yeah. That's supposed to show that, hey, brother, I work light. I'm this easy.
Right.
And then there's guys who take it a step further. And this is the one that when the original Carnies, me, Nick Iggy, and Kerry Awful, we weren't carnival Carnies like they turned into. We were backstabbing,
Carnies.
Piece of crap Tennessee wrestler Carnies.
Yeah.
So we do the old Carney handshake. We totally ripped off the Too Sweet Me t-shirt, and we did the Carney handshake. And we would always say the 2-finger limper with a thumb graze, and you just shake hands with your 2 forefingers and your thumb, and you shake that as lightly as humanly possible. And it was the dumbest thing for supposed tough guys to do. Yeah. But that was the deal. And that's when I was brought in on that. And I shook Jerry Lawler's hand like that one night. And he said, don't ever do that. Shake my hand like a man. And I haven't done it since unless I'm joking around with somebody. Yeah. Or if it's somebody that I know like still likes it that way. And I'm like, all right.
Sure.
You know,
yeah.
But like Ben Jordan calls me a crowbar to this day because I shake his hand normal. And he's like, oh, stiff crowbar.
You're gonna break my arm, man. Oh, dude, Ben, what a old schooler too. You know, he would always pop up randomly. You know, Boogie Woogie Boy Gary Valiant, and he did a tag team, Gary Scott and Ben, and I heard a lot of great things about those guys. Those were the OG guys that would go up and work for Vince and work for WCW, and you randomly see them on a Saturday night, and then of course that tread on down to like Chase and the Wolfies and those guys, and then it went on down to the guys that I considered myself a part of with Plunky and Drew. You would randomly get booked on these WWE deals. Now I was never one; it never made sense for me. But I know most of the guys like Flynn, they would get WWE little tryout matches or tryouts, and you would work as security. You'll randomly see that happening still. How many times did you do that, Plunky?
Not a one.
Not a one. All right, we'll cut that out of the show.
Oh no, it's fine.
I'm just kidding.
No, I signed up for the website a couple times.
Yeah,
never really paid attention. Actually, I just saw the link was still on my favorites on my toolbar today. Yeah, and I was like, I'm never using that, and I just deleted it.
Erase. Yeah, right.
So I was under the impression that it was something Bert got people. Am I wrong about that?
No, you're not wrong. You could get it without Bert as well. But Bert knew the people to contact to for sure get you on, right?
For sure.
He would use that to get you to work cheaper.
Right, of course. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
But he could usually get you on.
Yeah.
I've seen some people who were awful and should not have been there.
Right.
Bert got him there.
Rest in peace, Bert Prentice. He was probably the last true carny. I mean, I know there's some out there still, but I mean, Bert was one of those true, real dudes. Like, would do a raffle and rig the raffle and then run another raffle in the raffle. Yeah. So anyway.
I've seen him hold a show hostage from coming back from intermission.
Yeah.
He'd be like, we're not starting back until all these raffle tickets are sold. Then you will get back to wrestling.
Wolfie tells a funny story about that happening. So, but, Plunky, man, when we're together, brother, time goes so fast. We're getting to the end of our segment here. One question I've got to ask you before you go is, just how bad do you hate Brock Anderson?
I don't.
Yeah, I know. I know.
But this is going to sound so bad. I wish he was better, but he legitimately had his first match on TV.
Yeah, right.
So I keep reminding myself that.
Right.
Because if my first match was in TV, holy crap, you guys would be saying, hey, how bad do you hate Jeremiah Plunkett? But every time I've watched him, he has gotten better.
Yeah.
I mean, so this would be, he's 2 years in, maybe?
Right.
That's it. Maybe. Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right.
Yeah. So, I mean, God, 2 years in.
Yeah.
But Jesus, does he look like his daddy?
I know, right? I mean, he needs to
want to get
thicken up.
built like his dad. Yeah, he needs to thicken up.
Yeah.
He looks like his dad on, like, Memphis payoffs. That's
right.
That's what Arn would have looked like if he was working for Goulas.
When you said Arn, I instantly booked you in as one of my favorite wrestlers of all time because I loved Arn Anderson. When I was younger, you'd get in the backyard and you'd play. My buddy'd be like, okay, I'm going to be Randy Savage. And I'm like, okay. He's like, who are you going to be? I'm like, Arn Anderson. He's like, why? I'm like, because Arn Anderson can really kick your ass.
Yeah.
It's like you got some people that could have been fantastic workers, great showmen and stuff like that. But like Arn, you just knew Arn. You saw him and you believed 100% he would kick your ass. He was the enforcer. He, no matter, what trouble Rick's mouth may have got, the horseman into or whatever, you knew Arn was going to be coming right back with either a steel pipe or something, but he was going to take care of the job,
Mm-hmm.
And I loved that no nonsense, looks like somebody's uncle, just thick, not even a body guy, but just a thick, badass looking pro wrestler. You know, you got like people like him, Finley, Fit Finley, same kind of style in my opinion. I love that. So when you said that, I was like, okay, this Plunkett guy knows what he's talking about. He's all right in my book, but yeah, I'm with you, man.
I've never been the super loud, super boisterous, super flamboyant type of personality. Period. Like I like, I like quiet. I like being alone. And I'm very reserved. So like for wrestling, to even get into wrestling, I have to like amp myself up a lot, right?
Sure.
And I mean, I'll be honest. A lot of that was why I drank. You know what I mean?
Sure. Liquid courage
to let loose. Yeah. I'm glad that's behind me because God, that was stupid. But so I think that's why I always saw Arn, because like Arn was a showman, but he wasn't a big crazy showman. He did little things, and like I like to try to do little things. Like Arn would get rocked, and he'd shake his head and be holding the fists up, and like he's looking at the stars and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Whereas other guys would hit the ground, scream, and all that. I just can't do that. I don't know if it's self-consciousness or what. So I've always gone for the Arn route. And then I would see other guys who did it. Bobby Eaton. Bobby Eaton was another small thing guy. You know what I mean? He wasn't big and loud. They had Cornette for that.
Right.
Yeah.
These are guys who excelled at what they did in the ring. And that's what I've always wanted to do, is excel at, be good at what I did in the ring.
Yeah, like you said, it's sometimes it's the little things that can really change the complexion of the match. It's first and foremost, I've always said it's the selling. If you can sell, you should always have a job. and the little things can turn it in from that's a good match to, now see, that's what I'm talking about kind of moment. And you're right, he would just shake it off, because like how many times, especially if you're watching a movie, you go, oh, the bar fight guy, he just kind of shakes it off and goes about his business. Arn would do that kind of stuff. And you're right. It's just little elements of at least pseudo realism included into it made it look like a real fight, and of course that spine buster, man, there's none better.
None. Yeah.
Brock's working on it. The last one I saw him deliver wasn't bad, but his dad still got that. That's the best. That's the best spine buster.
He has to do it well, or if he doesn't, he has to not wrestle anymore.
Right.
Well, he's been doing the gourd buster too. Give him a break.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. He has.
Take the gourd buster.
Yeah.
Now,
I put my spine buster up against Brock's, though. Man, I'm sorry.
I agree.
Well, there you go, though. I do have one question for you, because, like I said, I like to take old school and mix it with some kind of new school and kind of put them together and make a mess in my head. If you were starting an organization today and money was not an object, can you name 3 people that you would book instantly that you'd bring in and put under contract?
Currently working? This isn't an all-time thing. This is people like currently.
Well, you know what? Let's do currently working, and then maybe all-time even, because that'll go back to the old school too.
Oh, currently working. Gosh, who am I a super fan of? Colby Carino.
He's great.
I have not seen a little shit-talking heel better than him in such a long time.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I personally like Colby, and I'll watch him on TV and hate Colby. So that's awesome.
Sure.
Thomas Latimer. I mean, I know he's kind of already taken, so I didn't know if we're talking about people who are open or not.
No, you can cherry pick. No problems. This is fantasy world.
Tom is one of the best hands I've ever seen. He's one of the most. Yeah, he's one of the most aggressive. He cuts an amazing promo. He's always in amazing physical shape.
Mm-hmm.
I believe everything about Thomas Latimer anytime I see him work. So we've got a heel. We've got a little junior heavyweight shit-talking heel. Oh, God, I need an ultimate baby face.
Yeah, yep. And you can't say Ricky Morton, not in this group.
Yeah, well, and listen, I love Ricky, but I wouldn't base a company around the current Ricky Morton.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure, yeah, no.
I
Although,
Ricky,
hey, he still went a few months ago. He was still in there and bumping a little bit. You can't complain.
He's still great.
Fantastic.
I just wouldn't base the whole company around.
Sure. No, yeah, of course.
God, man, I'm so not up to grasp on what the product is right now too, which is horrible. There almost aren't any pure baby faces, and I would want a pure babyface against Tom. Jeez, man, you've really got me in a spot. I can't.
But you know what? That makes you think,
so
though.
many heels too. You know what?
Sure.
No. Actually,
Heels.
It's going to be a pure babyface, but it's not. And I'm gonna go with him because I've watched his run this entire time, and I've seen him legitimately make people in the audience cry with what he says, and that's Trevor Murdoch. I'm gonna go with Trev because he hooks them. Man, he hooks them. I was there when he won the 10 pounds of gold, and I saw how many people, myself included, cried.
Yeah.
So the fact that he can elicit that emotion, he's not the babyface I was going for. I was thinking about the old classic style babyface.
Sure.
But no, man, Trevor, yeah.
That's, you know, you say that name, that's one guy that I remember his WWEFG run, whatever the hell it's called at that time. He absolutely did not get highlighted for what he can actually do.
After they split the tag team, it really was unfortunate for Trev.
Yeah.
Right.
Because he's excellent in the ring too. His Japan work was great. Like he can go, but just after the tag team, they had him drunkenly singing "Friends in Low Places" on the announcers table. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and he and Cade were like, to me, they were like the new Outlaws. You know what I mean? You had Dusty and Murdoch in that. They couldn't be the New Age Outlaws, but they were the new Outlaws, in my opinion.
They really worked well. It really worked with those two guys.
Bro, I loved them. That high-low when they just hit it, and you could tell they laid it a little bit more in than others. It's just like, man.
Right. So many times in the current scene, if you do an up and over and they aren't getting down enough, you have to overcompensate and do the old like high clothesline, which looks like crap. And I hate that. So what I would see is like somebody like Trevor, if somebody would have done an up and over, expecting to kind of do that to him, he would probably just knock their head off.
No, it's your responsibility to duck, bro.
Right. I can't help you if you don't duck. Yeah.
Love it.
So, Plunky, brother, you got to come back on the show, man. You're one of my favorites as far as hanging out with you. I wish I could do more. Hopefully in the future, we'll get to hang out sometime soon. So with that being said, man, tell us where they can find you, your socials, your pro wrestling tees. Tell us about that, man.
Yeah, get your shit in now, Plunky.
All right. I'm on see, I'm bad about this. I'll just give it to you for 50% and then I'll get you on that.
No.
I'm on my social media, Instagram, Twitter. I have a Facebook, but I probably won't respond there unless you're offering me money to wrestle.
Yeah.
I'm Plunkitis on all of those. You can thank Danny Deals for that name that he gave to me 10 years ago. I do have a Pro Wrestling Tees. It's Pro Wrestling Tees / Jeremiah Plunkett. But I'm moving a lot of my stuff over to storefrontier.com / Plunky's Gimmick Table.
Yeah. I know why, probably. Yeah.
Well, they have more options. You know what I mean? Like Pro Wrestling Tees, there is that other thing with Pro Wrestling Tees.
Yeah.
But Store Frontier, you can put yourself in tank tops, hoodies, all this stuff. Whereas Pro Wrestling Tees, like you get one color shirt.
Right.
At least for guys like us. You know what I mean? I'm sure AEW you can put it on whatever you want. But,
Right.
But so there's a lot of options. They got me with tie-dye t-shirts.
That's awesome.
Tie-dye. So I'm like, sweet, I can do it. Here we go.
Yeah.
So prowrestlingtees.com / Plunky's Gimmick Table. And that's the biggest thing to support besides, seeing where you can find me and come see me in person.
Yeah, for sure.
Keep me company at the Gimmick Table. Please buy something, but keep me company because I hate being out there. And man, if you can, just check out the NWA. You can watch it for free on YouTube, or if you want to go ahead and get the all access pass, it's $50 for the year.
Wow,
you can't beat that.
That gets you every pay-per-view. That gets you the first run of the TV shows. And then when they do their little specials like the 10 pounds of gold and it looks like one starting called Building the Burke about the women's championship. So,
nice.
All that stuff will be available first run on there. So, I mean, for the $50, I think that's the price of 2 of the pay-per-views, and they're talking about doing 6 of them this year.
Wow.
Okay. My granddad would always tell me that's like a sore Peter. You can't beat it.
That's a granddad line. That's awesome.
Well, at the end of the day, you got the same line. At the end of the day, you got to remember, I'm from Kentucky, born and raised, until I ended up in Ohio. So
there you go. Yeah,
I'm not too far from you guys when it comes to that kind of stuff. That raising, yeah.
Right.
Jeremiah, for just getting to meet you tonight, man, I really appreciate you coming on and having a good time. And I had a blast talking to you. Like Jimmy said, we got to have you back on the show. There's tons of little 10-year-old Mark Dan questions that I want to ask a pro wrestler still. So hopefully in the future, we get to speak to some other pro wrestlers, but at least now I can look at Jimmy and go, hey, make him answer. You know this guy, right? So, but no, seriously, I really appreciate you coming on, man. It was a blast to get to meet you and a blast to get to talk to you.
I'd get really in trouble if I didn't say this. We also have a podcast. It's a terrible podcast, but it's called the Territorial Wrestling Review. And we literally will pick random 10-minute wrestling matches that we do not watch beforehand. So we don't know if they're good, terrible, what. Yeah. And me and my old tag team partner, Quentin Charisma, we'll watch them together, laugh, and then we'll discuss about current wrestling that he usually hates.
He's awesome. Quentin's awesome. And also the podcast is not terrible, man. It's a good podcast. So yeah, I'm a listener.
Yeah, please find that, folks. Please find that and throw that in your rotation. Yeah,
absolutely. We'll put the link in the description and all that. I love you, buddy. It's good to see you, man.
I love you. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you, bud.
Up next, give me back my pro wrestling action figures after these messages.
Just how drunk are we gonna get?
Welcome to Good Beer, Bad Movie Night, where each month we drink finely crafted brews while watching terrible films in order to see just how drunk you have to get to enjoy them. So tune in and join Troy.
Killboy Kreitz.
Oh, that was pretty good.
Thank you.
Dave.
I have the weirdest boner.
And Pete.
IPAs are ales, meaning they are bottom fermented. Excuse me, they are top fermented. I that up. Try that again.
As we drag Kathleen.
Hear me.
Kicking and screaming through an alcohol-fueled podcast dedicated to movies of questionable quality and the frosty adult beverages that help make them tolerable. Good Beer, Bad Movie Night. Clearly, it's the beer's fault.
Action figure.
All right, everyone. Now we're going to talk about some action figures. Remember the first episode, Jimmy? Remember back all those years ago now?
Yeah.
And the better half of the street tag team, Jared, was on the show.
Yeah.
Jared, are you there?
I'm here.
I love whenever he does a run in. Jared, we're going to talk about some action figures again. And you are our action figure guru. So please take it away.
Yeah, guys, there's some exciting news with retro wrestling action figures. It looks like we're going to maybe see some wrestlers that nobody ever thought would probably be made into figures. It takes the WWE a few years ago had that Jakks Classic Superstars, but this is going to encompass people that you wouldn't even dream of in that set. It's called Powertown brand, and their tagline is "Where Wrestling Lives On."
Okay.
And, Greg Gagne is half behind it, and I think the other guy's name's Steve Rosenthal, and they were some of the original people that did the AWA Rimco back in the day.
Nice.
They have a Series 1 announced, and I've seen some of the mock-ups, and it looks pretty good. They've got Vern Gagne is going to be one.
Right.
Lou Thez. Lou Thez is big in the 40s and 50s.
Right.
Somebody like a godfather of wrestling.
Literally. Yeah.
They're going to have Ted DiBiase and Stan Hansen in their All Japan Wrestling tag team.
Oh, you know what? Now that you said that, I remember seeing some renderings of this on Facebook. And because I remember I was looking at them going, oh, that's kind of cool. Let's go. Stan Hansen and Ted DiBiase sold.
Yeah. Exactly. And then the other two to round out the six are Kerry Von Erich.
Nice.
And Magnum TA.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that's a good lineup right there.
Yeah. Every time I think about Magnum TA, I always think of what could have been with him.
Right.
It's tough not to. They apparently had all the plans in the world for him. The NWA and a car wreck.
Yep.
Takes away that.
Yep. Yeah, he could have been as big as Hogan or Flair from that era easily. Magnum TA, he was a good-looking guy, had good presence, and could really work in the ring and tell a great story. Magnum, he was fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some of the matches I remember with him and Tully Blanchard were just amazing.
Sure.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Sure.
That
Hey, Jared,
I quit match. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Jared, while we have you on here, let me ask you this question. Are there any, and maybe you don't even know, I don't know. Are there any figures or companies thinking about making some of the old World of Sport figures like Giant Baba and things of that nature?
I don't know that, but that Powertown brand, supposedly they have 150 wrestlers or family members of wrestlers signed on to do the likenesses of either themselves or their family members that are already passed on.
Oh, holy hell.
Yeah.
I mean, there was the Rougeau family. I think I read 8 names of the Rougeau family that they're going to do.
Wow. Do you have any kind of a list? I mean, or a similar from memory? Do you remember?
I mean, it was a lot of the Rougeaus I'd never heard of, but of course Jacques was on there, and
sure,
some of them. I do know Cowboy Bobby Duncombe.
Okay,
he was in the AWA some. He's going to be on there, and his sons. Was there Cowboy Bobby Duncombe Jr. and
West Texas rappers? Remember them?
Yeah.
Rap is crap.
There's only one thing that I hate, 'cause it's a bunch of crap. I hate rap. Rap is crap.
After I had to think about it for a second.
I remember that, yeah.
There was another one of the, I can't remember what the other son's name was, but he's going to be on there.
Are they talking about putting all the Von Erichs out?
You would have to think they would, right? I mean,
right. There's 20 or 40 of them at this point, I think, something like that.
Yeah. I mean, you'd have to think they would do Fritz and all the boys.
Sure.
Unless they're just, some of them, some of them had such a tragic end to their life. Unless there was something that, that maybe they wouldn't want that or something. But
right. Now that makes me think like people like Baron von Raschke. I always mispronounce the name. Him, Kowalski, Monsoon back in the day. An Adrian Adonis figure. Can we please get an Adrian Adonis a figure at this point? I mean, there's some of the earliest names that I can recall in my head, the original Sheik, the Wizard, all that stuff. We never got figures like that from WWE's line. So maybe we can get those in this particular line.
Now, I did read somewhere that after you clicked in my head there a little bit, Dan, when you were talking about some of those names, I did read with that Powertown brand, I'm pretty sure they're looking into some managers, and they're going to have Missy Hyatt.
Okay.
And Skandar Akbar.
Oh yeah!
Oh man, that'd be awesome. Then I don't think
there were a few other names too. I can't remember.
Gary Hart.
Yes, Gary Hart was on there.
Very cool.
Yeah.
You said Missy Hyatt. It made me think of Woman. Obviously, I can understand why we would not get that figure necessarily, but it's still a shame though, because I mean it's you said Missy, and that was the other name that popped right in my head right away,
Right.
But
touchy subject, it's unfortunate.
Touchy,
yeah.
But she deserves a figure, doesn't she? I mean, wouldn't it be great for her to have a figure to be honored? I mean, she put a lot of work
that way. Yeah.
She put a lot of work in the business, and I would imagine maybe her sister, after watching that Dark Side of the Ring, her sister may have the right to, her likeness or whatever.
Do something at that point.
Maybe if they contacted her, she would want to do something like it. I mean, maybe even touch her, but some of her work with Kevin Sullivan in Florida was, innovative beyond its years. I mean,
well, I mean, like we never thought that we'd get any more Owen Hart,
right?
love, and now they're working with AEW for that. So, I mean, hey man, there's always possibilities at this point.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Sure.
I will say we've probably seen our last Benoit figure though, right? I mean, the ruthless aggression era, maybe.
Probably, that I would say.
Is that too soon? Sorry.
It's just, I think it's just,
it is what it is. You know, it is what it is at this point. And you're right. It's. I doubt we will ever see that figure at this point. But
right
now, Jared, I know you're more of an old school fan, but with Tony Khan now picking up Ring of Honor lately, do you think that we're going to start getting some Ring of Honor classic type of figures, maybe in the Jazzwares AEW like line at this point? Do you foresee something like that maybe happening?
Why wouldn't you? I mean, why wouldn't you if you could do it? I mean, with the collector market, the way that it is today,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these people are, I mean, like me, I'm a novice compared to most people. I feel like when it's like how rabid these people are about collecting these, and they'll sell their kidneys to get to get some of these figures. So I mean, but why wouldn't you? I mean, like it just makes perfect sense. Unless you just can't get the licensing with the people. I mean, their likeness or whatever. So
I mean, that would be a great get too, because just from a business standpoint, you've got people that are now on the AEW roster that would have an ROH figure.
Right.
You've got people that are on the WWE roster that should have an ROH figure. You got people that are now free agents that should have an ROH figure. So from Tony Khan's standpoint and like Jazzwares, it's like looking at Vince and them and going, you can kiss my ass. Because that's not Cesaro, that's Claudio Castagnoli,
Yeah.
And I would be very excited to get a El Generico figure.
You're just angling for a CM Punk and some basketball shorts, aren't you, Dan?
Hey, after this weekend, if they don't make one on the AEW line, I'm gonna be really upset.
Yeah, I can imagine that they will. That's a no-brainer. One with blood and one with more blood.
Right.
Oh man, he was gushing this weekend, seriously. So, hey, Jared, I don't know if I asked you this last time or not, but if you could have one figure, one wrestling the personality or icon made into a figure that we don't have yet, do you have one in your back pocket?
That we don't have at all.
Yeah, that you can't think of. Or I guess maybe a modern, better version of that. Obviously, you've got some old versions of like the Remcos or the Ruthless Aggressions or anything like that, but like a new, modern, beautiful version with the new technology.
Man, that's a tough question. It's a good question. It's a great question, but I was trying to think of who that would be. I mean, there's so many names like flooding through my head right now, and I'm like, wait, they had this figure. Wait, they had this figure.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to see the Rock and Roll Express get a good likeness of them. And when we were growing up, Jimmy was always Ricky Morton, and I was always Robert Gibson coming in for the hot tag. So, I mean, I just feel like that they would be a great one.
That would be an awesome set. Yeah.
Man, what about somebody like New Jack or somebody like that?
Yeah.
Like he has the EC Dub figures, but those
EC Dub figures are not great.
They're not great. They don't have the best likeness. I mean,
at this point they made the Goon. I mean, come on, give us some. If you're going to go, who are we making this week? I don't know, the Goon.
Yeah.
Like, well, what the hell are you thinking at this point?
Yeah. It's just trying to make money right now. Just throw it out there and somebody's going to buy it.
Right.
No, absolutely. They will. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But no, you're right. I mean, I think a Rock and Roll Express with the modern technology that they can make figures would be outstanding. I'm also thinking with along the manager line, we get us a Jimmy Street detachable shoes.
Yeah.
The variant with the Sheik headdress.
Well, I mean, I have an off-brand gimmick with a Stone Cold head that my nephew Paxton loves and makes it. It blows his mind that there's an action figure of me. Now, of course, it's a custom, but let's make a Jimmy Street. Let's get that out there. We spoke it into existence.
Let's get there's another real big popular action figure wrestling podcast. They've got their own figures. Why can't we have our own?
Well, how about this? Since we're a tag team, but with Jared we are a trio, so we're the modern day Freebirds of the podcasting world. So that being said, they could make a 3-pack of the three of us of the Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling podcast. I mean, what do you say to that?
Yeah, I'm down for that. I like that too, because if I need to take a night off, then Jared can just come in and fill in.
Oh yeah, I mean,
hey, where do we sign up for this right now?
We may want to change our ring jackets, though. I don't know if we wanted to do the traditional Freebird ring jackets. We may have to just go with the red silk.
Are there some negative connotations with that or something?
Yes. We may have to go with the red satin jackets.
I love the Dukes of Hazzard too. Is there something wrong with that?
Well, yeah, there's some issues out there nowadays. But that's all right.
So with that being said, we had Jeremiah Plunkett on. He's a current NWA pro wrestler right now. Tell me real quick, what are they doing to make those Powertown figures happen?
From everything I've read, and there's limited information out there, they all say similar things, but the one thing I've read is that they're doing a Kickstarter for Series 1, and that may be the only way you can get Series 1 is take part in the Kickstarter with them. And if it does good, that's going to help the rest of the line down. If they've already got 150 wrestlers, they've got probably 100 more calls out to wrestlers or feelers out for people to, sign on the dotted line and say, hey, I would love my family member, or hey, I would love to have my action figure made, get my due as far as, and they're doing it, to kind of put some money in these guys' pockets that, they didn't have a retirement plan. They didn't have, they probably didn't have the best savings accounts. A lot of them lived all their money spent on booze and women sometimes. I mean,
and I mean, that's true. I mean, one person I'm thinking of that we'll hopefully see a wrestling figure of is Bruiser Brody, man.
I would say absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, if you're seeing a Stan Hansen, hopefully we're going to see a Bruiser Brody.
I just want the Stan Hansen. I'd like to have one where you can pull the string on his back and he just goes tiny wanger. That's
and there's the drop.
Well, if it ain't the teeny wangers.
Jared, I don't know why, but every time you come on, we're doing a teeny wanger drop. Anyway, nothing personal. We promise.
No, I hope not.
Love it, man.
Always glad to have you on here, Jut. We're plugging along. We're getting some good listenership, so we definitely appreciate it, but we're glad to have the action figure segment as a part of it, as always. So thanks for coming on, buddy.
You're welcome. I'm not only a part of this podcast, but I'm a listener as well. I've listened, and I've done a great job. I will say, and I told Jimmy this, Dan, I think when you all were talking last time about the greatest or the best sports entertainer personality of all time. I messed up by not saying the Undertaker. Best sports entertainer.
Well, yeah. I mean, you make a hell of an argument. I mean, it's hard to argue against the Taker at this point. You're right.
Yeah. Unquestionably, because the gimmick that he had, he was the ultimate sports entertainer gimmick. He may be the greatest gimmick ever. Like Jared said, and I'm not trying to speak for you, Jupp, but his argument was he wasn't really anything until he was a gimmick, and that's so true, So, but me and Mark Callis aside,
Skyscrapers 2-pack, make it happen.
Yeah, make it happen. Yeah, let us know when that's happening. Get Dan Spivey in that, and we'll figure it out. So
dangerous Dan Spivey. Jeez, get out of here.
Well, Jet, we'll see you later, buddy. We'll talk to you next time. Okay.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Later.
Figure sold separately.
With a tear in my eye. This is the greatest moment in my life.
This has been a James Rock Street production.